Broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas. It's NOV Live. Now, let's start the show.
Hello, my name is Shelby Dumaine. Welcome to NOV Live. This is the show where we bring on experts from within NOV and sometimes even from outside of NOV and talk about some exciting technology that we have going on here. Thank you so much for joining, whether it's good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. We welcome you to the show, and we're really excited. We have an excellent show today. We're talking about the recent joint development agreement that we have between NOV and Chevron. We have some incredible guests on. This is a really important agreement that we have, and so we're excited to talk a little bit more about that. And before we get into it, I did want to mention, if you have any questions throughout the show for either of our guests, we have, like I said, this is a JDA between NOV and Chevron, so we have guests from both, and we'll be talking about that. So you can comment your questions below, whether you're watching this on Twitter, on LinkedIn, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in from. You can post your questions, and we'll do that Q&A there at the end of the show. And the last thing I like to do before we get into the questions is we're actually going to ask you a question, our audience. So it's time for the trivia of the week.
Rig Geeks Post of the Week.
We're going to have one of our guests, Cobie, here. Do you mind reading the question? Just the question. We're going to save the answer for the end. Don't give it away. No spoilers. But can you read that question for our audience?
I would be happy to, Shelby. Thank you very much. What will be the deepest subsea compression in the world? So the question again, what will be the deepest subsea compression in the world?
All right. And that question should be on screen. So if you think you know the answer, go ahead and comment it below. And we will see who our true energy geeks, rig geeks, whatever have you, are out there online if anybody knows that answer. And so without further ado, you know our trivia question. You know to comment below if you have any questions for us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. First off, you just met Cobie. This is Cobie Loper. He is the Vice President of Global Offshore Accounts here at NOV. So welcome, Cobie. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much. We're excited to be here today. Really great topic, and think the audience will really enjoy the conversation. So thanks for having us here. Absolutely.
We're honored to have y'all on here, both on here, and joining us virtually we have Farzan Parsinejad. He is the Senior Advisor for Flowlines, umbilicals, and risers at Chevron. Welcome, Farzan, to the show.
Thank you, Shelby, and thank you, Cobie, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, just to kick it off, actually, I'm going to start with you, Farzan. Can you tell us a little bit about what value Chevron saw in partnering with an NOV to sign this joint development agreement?
Yeah, great question. So we at Chevron, first of all, a little bit of background about myself. I have an advisory role within the Chevron Technical Center, where we basically support all of our business units across the world. Whether in the major capital project phase or during the operations and finding technical solutions. As part of our roles, we try to find what the business needs are based on the feedback we get from business units and develop technologies that can answer their challenges. So with that background, over the past few years, we've had some success stories with similar agreements with other partners, other industry partners, which kind of helped us fast track the deployment of the technology and help the business very greatly. You know, other avenues that I can think of why having a JDA with likes of NOV will help. So first of all, we choose our partners in a strategic manner based on what the history that we have with them and the technology and research. Like I know myself, for example, I know NOV since maybe over 10 years ago when I started projects on flexible pipes, but we have heard and we have engaged with them on multiple rounds. My other colleagues have had different experiences. So basically, we're trying to get away from us coming to a technology solution vendor like NOV and say that, hey, we have a problem and give us a solution right now. Break that. Rather, we say that what the business wants and collaboratively work together to find a solution and then develop it, test it, and run it to the business and also hoping that this process is much faster than we go and try to buy something. So that was in a very layman's term, that's the idea. So the development agreement that we're talking about basically sets the ground for us to run, rather than following a lot of processes that involves with us getting engaged with a partner like NOV. So this is something that we're very much looking forward to, having a continuous dialogue with NOV as a partner, letting them understand what we need, letting them tell us what they have ideas. We share our ideas together and basically build a long-term partnership besides that. And I don't know if Cobie has anything else to say on this.
No, I think you covered it perfectly, and I think it's unique that the opportunity to work with an operator like Chevron. Really,
right.
They have business needs around the world. Our toolkit for the offshore production fits very nicely with what they're looking at, and to be able to sit down and collaborate and develop tools that will be put into the waters or on topside, whatever it may be, is a fun opportunity, and we're looking forward to working closely with them.
Absolutely. Really be able to kind of combine forces on a project like this is exciting. And so speaking of Cobie, can you give us a little bit of background? How does this work? How does the JDA work? How is this kind of moving forward?
Yeah. It's a kind of unique opportunity. It's really, as Farzan said, a business need. One of their units around the world may have a challenge, Subsea, may have a challenge with a product, a pipe, something that's unique that fits in our toolkit. And with that, then we come together as a team and look to how to solve that problem. We may have some IP, they may have some IP. We may combine and develop new IP through the process. So it's really a way that you have to come together and figure out how to make things work. And then from that, you really kick off some feasibility studies. How are you going to solve the problem? What's the development needs, and how do you match those with the capabilities and the uniqueness of the opportunity? And from that, is it feasible? Does that make sense? And then from there, we start looking, okay, what's the next steps? How do we qualify it? What are the qualification requirements around that product? And ultimately, as I said, which is the best part of it, we get to put it in the water, and we get an opportunity to explore other opportunities in the industry with that solution that we've developed for Chevron. So it's I think a win-win. We solve a business need. We develop some tools that we can add to our toolkit and grow our business. So it's quite a unique opportunity. And
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to putting that first product in the water for sure.
Right. Well, that's the best kind of project, is when it's a win-win. So we love hearing that. Can you talk a little bit about what is the scope of the JDA, and maybe also what benefits does NOV get as being part of this JDA?
Right. Yeah. It originally started more focused on the subsea side of the business. Really looking at that part, under the water. But so that would cover our SPS products, which would be our hardware, our flexible pipe business. But we also have some disruptive technology, such as CBOX, subsea water treatment. We have our SAPL, subsea automatic pig launcher. We're looking at some other produced water treatment and solutions. So that really is what got the conversation going. And you can see with the animation running in the background, it gives you a little bit about this offshore production capability that NOV has. And, in addition to that, we started out subsea, but we said, well, look, we've got some other good tools as well. We've got APL, one of the world leaders in turrets and disconnectable offloading systems. We also have well stream processing as part of our toolkit. That's topside processing, produced water treatment, seawater treatment. So we're starting, initially looking subsea, but we wanted to broaden that opportunity and really look across all of our portfolio. So I think as we get in these conversations and start looking at some of these business needs, we'll hopefully find opportunities across there. And what's really good for NOV is that we're working with one of the best, right? One of the best operators in the world in Chevron, which really gives some credibility to NOV's technical capability. We'll learn and we'll grow from that. It may be ideas that maybe there's not a business need, but we identify something that says, wow, that's pretty unique. We could take that somewhere else and maybe grow that. As well as I said before, the opportunity to work, develop, qualify, and put something in the water. A lot of R&D, sometimes you're looking at a market thinking, I'm going to spend a lot of money and I think I'm going to get somewhere, and sometimes that doesn't work. So a business need leading to a direct product, and building off of NOV's, strong NOV Offshore Productions toolkit, I think we'll be able to really bring a lot of opportunity to both Chevron and us for the future. So it's, as you said, it's a win-win opportunity for us.
Absolutely, no doubt. And I love this animation that we showed a second ago, the video that we had. I know, and hearing you talk about Seabox, some of the other products, that's stuff that we've had on the show. So it's really interesting I love seeing kind of how all of those come into play kind of together, the kind of pieces of the puzzle forming. And I want to ask you, Farzan, so you mentioned a little bit earlier that, Chevron has done some of these JDAs in the past. Do you have any examples of past JDAs from development and deployment that you could give us?
Yes, as I mentioned before, we have had other type of agreements, similar type of agreement with industry players. Again, we chose them strategically based on their capabilities and track record. And what I can share a couple of examples. Is one was we found some solution and deploy solutions for buckling of flow lines due to high temperature and walking. That has been deployed in a couple of projects, or monitoring of risers and flow lines, for example. And what we call smart monitoring system is a technology that the idea came internally within Chevron, but through this really great partnership that we had, we could develop it much further in more details and find even more creative solutions. For example, one of the challenges with these monitoring systems is accuracy, and the other challenge is the life. Imagine that you have a sensor on a system and you have to replace the battery of that system every 2-3 months. That's a lot of operational costs. So this is a business need that we convey to our partner. Collaboratively, we work together and we find basically solutions that was not an industry solution. We find it in other technologies outside oil and gas, and we brought it in and deployed in one of the projects, and it's going to be further deployed in. So the key is deployment here. I just want to re-emphasize that, right. and the business needs that we can have a very easy conversation with a partner like NOV or the other partners that I mentioned examples of. And once we convey this agreement helps us to share what the problem is and listen to what the industry partner like NOV can bring. And then we can further develop it. Do we have to qualify something, testing, and just play the roadmap all the way with always the shining star is that we want to deploy it and we want to do it as fast as possible. So that has been very successful within Chevron, and that's why we continue this model with finding partners like NOV.
Absolutely, I love kind of that emphasis on deployment. That I've kind of gotten that from both of your answers, what you've said so far. I mean, that really seems to be the key here, is that this is an actionable project. This is something that we'll be able to see through. So that's really exciting to get to hear about. And Farzan, I had another question. So what challenges does Chevron typically see kind of in the offshore arena in your experience?
The challenges are a lot, and that's what makes it more fun, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, in short, basically, we would like to have technologies that help us. Even if the step change in technology is minor, the impact is high in terms of bottom line economics of the projects, how much we want to invest in, and how soon we can get something out. You've heard, we want to make sure that we have basically take more out of the investment that we have, which makes sense, right? With an investor mindset that we're going through this. So basically, if an asset is producing, what can we do to produce more efficient, less downtime, any technologies? Now, there are newer eras that are coming in place, like ultra deep water with its own challenges. In some of our areas and business units, they're dealing with much higher temperatures and pressures for the reservoir that we have been used to. So that definitely opens up opportunities for new technologies to make sure that how we can safely produce and reliably as well. So these are the couple of things that I can think of. You might have heard of tiebacks. That's the playbooks that all operators have in their basically toolbox, because it's simply fast track development of an opportunity, and we want to make sure that the technology is not the basically showstopper here. We can find a solution and quickly during that pre-feed area introduce it, choose this as an alternative solution, and move forward with that.
Absolutely. And kind of speaking of solutions, Cobie, I wanted to ask, are there any, could you talk about technologies that support the offshore space, the offshore business?
Yeah, certainly. And I think Farzan hit on a key there, tiebacks, right?
Yes.
You've got an existing asset. How do you get more oil through that asset without a big investment? So that means you want to get longer and longer tiebacks. And so some of our technologies, such as subsea chemical storage, those are technologies that lend it to itself. So instead of having long umbilicals, having to bring the chemicals out from the platform, you can put them at the wellhead. Our C-Box is another example. If you've got a long tieback and you need water injection, for example, you can put the water on the seabed and eliminate a flowline riser system. We're also looking at subsea storage, opportunities if you have limitations on an FPSO, or if you want to eliminate an FSO, for example, for ESG purposes, you can store the oil on the seabed. And so we've been making really good advances in some of those technologies as well. And that's an area where we see that opportunity to work with Chevron is in that longer tieback space. What are some of the technologies we need to use there? Also, they have a pretty expansive use of flexible pipe. Before the show, we were talking about working on a project with them right now. That flexible pipe is a big part of their portfolio. So reliability of flexible pipe, being able to inspect flexible pipe, what are the tools out there that can help them maintain and keep the uptime on their flexible pipe that we sell them and support them. That's some areas where we've got some technologies that we're developing. And there's other things that are in kind of the concept phase that we see would help in that space. And again, as we look above the waterline, disconnectable turrets, offloading buoys, is there a way to combine our subsea storage with our APL offloading buoy so the FSO can go away and you can pick up oil and convenience and support projects that way, again, with the ESG and opportunities. And then on the top side, we have compact technologies for processing. A big part of the challenge is, as Farzan mentioned, is getting more oil efficiently through your platforms. And the more tiebacks typically means you need more oil, and it's not the same oil. So what do you do to make sure you can process all that oil, be successful in delivering it, but not a huge investment, and you have a limited footprint in space? So I think as we work through the water column up, there's a lot of areas in what some of the challenges for Chevron and Farzan that we can help bring a little bit of value to them through this relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like though the challenges or maybe we could say the opportunities are many, the solutions that the technology to support it is also many, which is convenient.
Yes.
We love that.
It's a good match.
We love
good
that.
match.
Yeah, we love that. And I wanted to give some time for our audience questions. And while we were talking about tiebacks, we got one for you, Farzan. A commenter online wanted to know, these tiebacks are so critical to growth, but how do you prioritize projects with that?
So it's a little bit above my pay grade, to answer.
Right. Fair.
But I can say that there is a whole suite of decision-making process within any operators that they look at multiple things, economics, basically the capex and capital investment, and strategic locations. How you probably and this is Farzan's just talking. I can't say for Chevron. It's just me saying that okay, you want to produce, but then in a chain of market system, okay, where do you go, where do you sell it, where do you refine it, all those stuff can come into play. So it's a very hard question to answer simply, and but I can assure you every major operators, they have a group of highly experts, decision makers, that they look at all these inputs and then decide what the queue of projects look like, and tieback is one of them, and they compete in a very economic space matter.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, I always apologize if sometimes the big questions, but those are the fun ones, so we like to ask them anyway. And Cobie, this question's for you. So we were talking about SBS or subsea production systems and subsea solutions. So this commenter asked, what subsea solutions are in your portfolio specifically to improve things like subsea economics? They asked ESG and time to first oil.
Yeah, and I think I touched on a few of those
Right.
those products. And from an ESG standpoint, we've got a number of things in our toolkit. Taking processing and equipment off of the vessel, putting it subsea, such, for example, the sea box, subsea storage, or we're also working on produced water treatment for subsea. That's taking equipment off that usually needs a lot more power, so you're improving the ESG footprint through that. We also have carbon capture technologies that we're working on through our well stream processing group. So that could be typically flue gas type of carbon capture, and looking at, what can we do and deploy on offshore floating vessels to maybe capture, store, and inject in local wells, things like that. So from a subsea tieback, I think those help with the ESG as well as what we can do on the top side. And economically, really looking at, again, some of those game changers in terms of moving big flow lines and risers, taking those out of the equation, putting things more locally to the wellhead. What other things can we be doing in that space to reduce those costs? Because these tiebacks are getting longer and longer, and a big part of them is the flow lines, risers, and umbilicals that Farzan has responsibility for at Chevron. And those are areas. What are some of the other things? And I think a lot of our toolkit is lending itself to those solutions.
Absolutely. And, I would be remiss as the social media manager for NOV not to mention that if anyone's watching, if you want to specifically learn more about the technologies from, you mentioned well site services or SPS, we do have LinkedIn pages for both of those business units. So if you search subsea production systems or well site services, look for the ones with the NOV logo. And I know they post a lot more kind of information specifically on those technologies. So that's something to follow kind of the day-to-day of those projects. And this last comment we got, this is actually for both of you, and I'm really curious to hear kind of the perspectives on both sides. But the commenter was asking, how do you drive JDAs when you have two big players like NOV and Chevron? How are you driving that within these organizations? So Farzan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think JDA is the vehicle to help that. I mean that's the whole idea why we did this, right? So imagine that I would go to Cobie in the old model, say that I have this problem. What is your solution? Let me just buy it right now. We want to get away from that. Yes, we have a lot of smart people within our company, but we don't know everything. Maybe we haven't heard all the technologies available. That's one thing. Now, Cobie and his team, they're developing certain technologies without getting feedback from operators. They need to know what the problems are. So it's a two-way communication that's JDA allows to happen, right? It really, that's this partnership and this collaborative way of solving problems is what the JDA allows that. Now, the JDA, if you notice, is from the Technology Center, Chevron Technical Center with NOV. So we are a central organization supporting globally all the business units. So that helps us to realize what problems we have from different business units and communicate better with NOV and other partners that we have in that, again, collaborative approach and put our ideas together. So to me, this JDA, it just helps that happen. It's really the vehicle that makes us move forward in in my opinion, a lot more efficient way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Cobie?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. I think the JDA is the perfect vehicle, and also that we communicate on a regular basis. So we don't just sit on the sidelines and then something pops up and they call us and we come together. We try to meet monthly. We had our first session where it was, here's the NOV toolkit. We laid it out. Farzan brought a very diverse group from subsea all the way to mooring, all the way up to the topside processing. So we laid out, here's our toolkit, here's everything we're doing, this is where we're investing R&D money, so they have a very good understanding of it. And then we'll have monthly visits, and if a project happens, of course, that will spur a lot more communication. But we want to just keep talking and keep thinking, and maybe they have a business need, they don't know it yet. That maybe we say something or say, hey, here's the technology, and they go, wait, that might could help me here or help me there. So it's really JDA, regular communication, and bringing more parts of the business. And he's got the kind of the technical center role. I've got the NOV role with like herding cats, right? We're all over the place.
Right.
So my role is to make sure I'm tapping into the right folks in all of the offshore business units that we're bringing all of that expertise together with Chevron. So it's not easy sometimes, but I think now we've got a little momentum, and as soon as we see that first opportunity and deliver something, I think the value will just grow, and we'll see much more after that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's something as the JDA continues, we'd love to have y'all back on the show. Maybe Farzan, we could have you here in the studio to kind of check in and let the folks know how it's going or what's going on with that. So definitely would like to have y'all back on sometime. And I think we did get one. And this is, we do sometimes try to avoid taking out crystal balls, as if anyone saw our host, Michael Gaines, used to say, and looking into the future. But we did get a question from online. Could either of you talk about maybe in regards to the potential that this JDA has, where you see the market heading as a whole? It's a very broad question, to be fair. But
Farzan, you want to start that, or you want me to start that one?
Sure, I can start. I mean, again, I want to reemphasize that we have to look at what the business units, they are the ones that are closest to the well, and they know what's happening, and they will tell us what the problems are. If I had that kind of crystal ball, I think I'm in the wrong business. I would leave and retire tomorrow, right? So, but what I can say that in general, everything about safety and reliability are the biggest issues for all the operators, everybody, and maintenance, making sure that we have more uptime time. All of these play a role basically, and eventually the economics for the newer venues and newer projects. So we have to look into that. Sorry, I cannot be more definite, but if I knew that answer, I would drop the mic right now and go home and buy the stocks.
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, exactly. And yeah, I agree with Farzan. It's really in today's business, these big, huge CapEx projects, you really need big fields. So you're still going to have the new frontiers in Guyana and Suriname and certain parts of the world, but most is about the maximizing the existing assets. So how can I keep that asset running, extend its service life? How can I bring on oil, but not just bringing on oil, reliable oil that's up and running. And a lot of the technologies are going to be around those kind of situations where you're really trying to maximize an asset's value. You're trying to make sure whatever you put in the water, you don't have to go spend money recovering or testing or those challenges. So a lot of opportunity in that area. And again, that means if you've got a full platform, you might have to do stuff on the seabed. And so I think you'll see those technologies as well advance. But it is a lot of it is around existing infrastructure and really maximizing your dollar, because your dollar per barrel goes up if you've got something to produce to versus building something new. So really taking advantage of that asset and is a challenge. So I think that's where the technologies will head. But again, no crystal ball here either, Farzan. So
Right. Well, I think that's so important too, because a lot of people, we talk about renewables a lot and greener energy, and not only does maximizing that existing infrastructure make economical sense, it also really does make sense. You're getting the most out of the resources we already have. So I think that's an important angle that maybe not everyone sees right away. But I think that's really special.
Yep. And the more you get through, your carbon footprint goes down, right? Lower carbon per barrel, which is really important these days. And the Gulf of Mexico has some of the lowest barrels of carbon in the world because they have such an good, strong existing assets, and Chevron's a big part of it, and just bringing back more oil through it. So it's maximizing resources and also improving carbon footprint. So it's kind of a win-win in that regard.
Absolutely. Well, I think some of the themes we're getting deployment, we're getting win-win. I like these words. I'm excited that we got to have y'all both on the show, both gentlemen. So thank you for coming on and being part of this conversation. And like I said, I can't wait to see where it goes and check in with y'all maybe in here a little bit.
Oh, yes,
so
we'd love to.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully next time we'll have something in the water, right, Farzan? So let's see how that goes.
That's the plan, right?
Absolutely. Well, and before we let our audience go, we asked them a question at the beginning of the show. So, Cobie, I'm going to ask you now if you could reread the question, but also reveal the answer for those who played.
Yes, and the question was, what will be the deepest subsea compression in the world? And in honor of our guest, Farzan, who is from Chevron, it will be the Chevron's Jansz Low project. It'll be in 1,350 meters of water offshore Australia, 11.5 megawatt compression. So it's a really impressive project that they're putting together to compress and move gas to the shoreline of Australia. Anything you want to add on that project, Farzan?
Yeah, just the name is Jansz.io.
Jansz.io, I know. I like to say low. Jansz.io, yes, thank you.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you both so much for coming on. And for everybody who tuned in, thank you for being part of our show. You can watch all past episodes at nov.com/live, and we will see you next week. Thanks for coming.